Wes was new. He was new to the towering forests of Washington state. He was new to the job of a trail worker. The trees here were giants. Their tops scraped the gray sky. Their roots dug deep into the damp earth. Wes liked the quiet. He liked being alone. He found a strange comfort in the vast, silent woods. He didn't need chatter. He didn't need company. Just him and the whisper of the wind through the pine needles. That was enough for Wes. Or so he thought. He believed himself a man of logic, a man who saw things for what they were, not for what old tales made them out to be. The air in these forests was different. It was heavy. It smelled of wet soil and decaying leaves. It smelled of old things, things that had been there for a very long time. Wes swung his Pulaski with a steady rhythm, clearing brush, digging shallow drains. The work was hard, but it was honest. He preferred the sweat on his brow to the forced smiles in crowded towns. He had come to these remote woods seeking solitude, and the woods had given it to him, in abundance. Each day, he ventured further from the main camp, carving paths into the wilderness, feeling a sense of accomplishment with every fallen branch cleared. The older men at the camp, they watched him. They were seasoned. Their faces were like old leather, etched with lines from sun and wind, and maybe from worry too. They saw Wes go off by himself each morning. They saw him return late, covered in dirt and sweat, but with a quiet satisfaction. They nodded, but their eyes held something else, something he couldn't quite read. He figured they thought he was strange, a loner. He didn't mind. He wasn't there to make friends. He was there to work his piece of the forest, to earn his keep, and to be left to his own thoughts. He wasn't superstitious, not one bit. Stories were just stories, ways to pass the time, ways to scare greenhorns. He'd heard his share in other jobs, in other places. Bigfoot, ghosts, mysterious lights in the sky. He'd chuckled at them all. The woods were just woods. Trees, dirt, animals. Nothing more. Nothing less. He believed in what he could see, what he could touch, what he could understand. The strange creaks of branches, the rustle in the undergrowth, the distant calls of unseen birds, these were natural sounds. They held no hidden menace for a practical man like Wes. The evenings in the work camp were filled with the smell of wood smoke and coffee and the low murmur of voices. The older men, they talked. They told stories, stories of the deep woods, stories of strange things. One name kept coming up, whispered, like a secret, the Hidebehind. That's what they called it. A creature of the shadows, a thing that watched you, but only when your back was turned, never when you looked. It was always there, just out of sight, a chilling presence that haunted the lonely trails and the darkest groves. They said it was tall and thin, like a shadow stretched long by the setting sun. It moved without a sound. It could hide behind the slenderest tree. That's how it got its name, the Hidebehind. If you were alone and you felt that prickle on your neck, that feeling of being watched, that was it. It was sizing you up, waiting. They said it didn't like to be seen. It was shy, but it was also patient, terribly patient. The old-timers would lower their voices when they spoke of it, their eyes darting towards the darkness that pressed in around the flickering campfire. Old Man Hemlock, he was the oldest. He had worked these woods for 50 years. He said he'd never seen it, not fully, but he'd felt it, many times. He'd heard things, a twig snap behind him when nothing was there, a soft footfall on the moss. He told Wes, "You mind yourself out there, son, especially when you're working solo. That thing, it preys on the solitary." Hemlock's voice was gravelly, serious. He wasn't trying to scare Wes. He was warning him. He spoke of loggers who went missing, of tools found in strange places, of a pervasive sense of dread that clung to certain parts of the forest. Wes listened. He nodded. But inside he scoffed. The Hidebehind. What a name. Sounded like something from a children's scary storybook. He figured it was just a way for the old-timers to explain the unease of being alone in such a vast, wild place. The forest was full of sounds. Animals moving, trees creaking, the wind. It was easy to let your imagination run away with you. He thanked them for their concern. But he didn't change his ways. He still preferred to work alone, far from the noise of the camp, far from their silly tales. He was sure there was a logical explanation for every bump in the night. One morning, a new section of trail needed clearing, the Lost Creek Trail. It was remote, deep in the back country. Nobody liked working it. They said it felt off. Wes volunteered. He liked the sound of it. Lost Creek. It promised true solitude. He packed his tools, his lunch, his water, and he set off before dawn. The air was cold. Mist hung heavy between the trees, like a shroud. The path was overgrown, barely visible in places, winding deeper and deeper into the untouched wilderness. He felt a thrill of anticipation, a sense of adventure, not unease. He worked hard all morning. The sun climbed. It burned off the mist, but it didn't seem to reach the forest floor here. It was always dim, always shadowed. The sounds of his axe and saw echoed in the stillness. At first, the usual forest noises were there. Birds chirped, squirrels chattered. But then, around midday, a silence fell. A deep, unnatural silence. The birds stopped singing. The squirrels went quiet. Even the insects seemed to hold their breath. It was as if the entire forest was listening, waiting. Wes paused, wiping sweat from his brow, suddenly aware of how loud his own breathing sounded. A prickling sensation started on the back of Wes's neck. He told himself it was the sun, or a fly. But it wasn't. It was the feeling of being watched. He turned around quickly. Nothing. Just the dense trees, the tangled undergrowth, the deep shadows. He shook his head. "Getting spooked, Wes?" he muttered to himself. He tried to laugh it off, but the feeling persisted. It grew stronger. A cold knot formed in his stomach. He felt exposed, vulnerable, like unseen eyes were fixed on him, measuring him, following his every move. He tried to focus on his work, but his gaze kept darting to the trees around him. He started hearing things. A twig snapped behind him, too close. He spun around. Again, nothing. Just the silent, watching trees. Then a soft rustle, like something brushing against leaves. It wasn't the wind. There was no wind. The air was perfectly still, heavy, oppressive. He called out, "Hello? Anyone there?" His voice sounded small, swallowed by the immense silence. Only the echo answered him, a faint, mocking echo. He picked up his pace, wanting to finish the section, wanting to get back to the familiar noise and company of the main camp. The woods no longer felt like a sanctuary. Then he saw it, or he thought he did, out of the corner of his eye, a flicker of movement, tall and very thin. It was behind a massive Douglas fir, just for a second, a dark shape, almost too slender to be real. He turned his head, gone, vanished, as if it had melted into the tree itself, or into the shadows. His heart began to pound. He told himself it was a trick of the light, a deer, but he knew it wasn't. He walked slowly towards the tree, his hand gripping his axe tightly. His mouth was dry. His breath came in short, sharp gasps. He reached the tree. There was nothing behind it. Of course not. But then he saw them, on the bark. Claw marks, 3 deep gouges, raked into the wood. They were fresh. The wood beneath was pale, and they were high up, higher than any bear could reach, much higher. Wes stared at them. His mind went blank with a sudden, cold terror. The stories, the warnings, Old Man Hemlock's worried face, the Hidebehind. It was real. It was here, and it had been watching him, waiting. The realization hit him like a physical blow, stealing the air from his lungs. Panic seized him, pure, animal panic. He dropped his axe. He didn't care about his tools. He didn't care about the trail. He just had to get out. He turned and ran. He ran blindly, stumbling over roots, crashing through bushes. He didn't look back. He didn't dare. He could feel it behind him, always just out of sight. He could hear it, or he thought he could, a faint rustling, a soft footfall that matched his own frantic pace, keeping up, never getting closer, never falling behind. Just there, always there, in the shadows at the edge of his vision. He ran until his lungs burned, until his legs ached. He screamed for help. He didn't know if anyone could hear him. Hours later, as dusk began to settle, a search party found him. He was miles off the trail, exhausted, sobbing, covered in scratches. He tried to tell them about the silence, the feeling of being watched, the shadow, the claw marks. They looked at him strangely. They thought he was delirious or crazy. The next day, a few of them went back to the Lost Creek Trail. They found his tools, scattered. His axe was embedded in a tree, far from where he'd been working. And on other trees nearby, they found more claw marks. Wes never worked alone in the deep woods again. He never felt truly alone again either.